blessed time. I gotta say, I love East Texas. East Texas, y'all growing strong. East Texas, y'all know what you believe. East Texas, you produce timid wallflowers. Like Louie, and Brian, and Cole. If you guys could just come out of your shells a little bit. Because the rest of here folks think that we need to be doing even more. You know, I'll tell you, John, you're right. Heidi and I have not moved to D.C. And, you know, we're all familiar with Davy Crockett, who famously said, "You all can go to hell, I will go to Texas." Yep. Every Monday morning when I'm flying to Washington, Heidi has a version of that where she says, as I'm going to D.C., "You can go to hell, I'm staying in Texas." But fortunately, it's a round trip, and I get to come back home. You know, when I was a kid, my dad used to read me bedtime stories. Every night. Every night he'd read me bedtime stories about great adventurers, people doing incredible things, founding Texas, where we came from as a people.
In English or Spanish?
In English, but he could do it in Spanish too. And look, I'm sure all of y'all did the same thing. And as kids, we used to dream, we'd go to bed and we'd dream we were there with Colonel Travis and Jim Bowie and Davy Crockett at the Alamo. We'd go to the movies and dream of being as tough as Chuck Norris. Although I'm not sure that's possible. But there came a time when my dad stopped reading me bedtime stories. And you grow up and you get married, you have kids of your own. And as the word said, you put childish things behind you. But I got to tell you, in the past 5 years, I have been incredibly privileged to get to know those same heroes that we dreamed about as kids, to get to know them in everyday life across the great state of Texas. We are living with heroes that are the stuff of legend. Whether it's the men and women who serve in the military and keep this country safe, whether it's the police officers and firefighters and first responders who risk their life every day to protect our freedom and keep our children safe, whether it is farmers and ranchers who work to provide food for Texas and the world, whether it is small business owners who provide jobs, who provide strength for the community, whether it is pastors who minister to our souls and spread the gospel, or whether it is single moms who sacrificially provide for their kids. We're surrounded by heroes. Each and every day. And you know, you really see heroes in times of crisis. We think back in the past year to Hurricane Harvey. When Hurricane Harvey hit our state, it hit our state hard. I grew up in Houston. Houston is used to hurricanes. That's just part of being on the Gulf Coast. Every now and then you get a hurricane. But we've never seen a hurricane like this one. Slammed into South Texas, slammed into Corpus, 135 mile an hour winds, doing crushing damage to Victoria and Rockport, Port Aransas and Aransas Pass. Then it moved north and east to the city of Houston, where it just parked and sat there for 4 days. Like your in-laws at Christmas. It didn't have the good sense and decency to know when to move on. Dumped 52 inches of rain, then it kept moving east to Beaumont, Port Arthur, and Orange, and Nederland, doing damage across 250 miles of our state. But you know, the story of Harvey is not the flooding, it's not the storms, it's not the homes that were damaged, the businesses that were lost. The story of Harvey is the heroes that rose up. the Texas Navy, the Cajun Navy, the thousands of ordinary Texans who went and jumped in a boat to save their neighbors, rednecks and bass boats. The very best of Texas. We saw it again a couple months later in Sutherland Springs. Worst church shooting in the history of our country. I was there the day after that shooting. I stood in that sanctuary. That small country sanctuary, smaller than this room. Over 450 rounds, shattered glass, shattered wood, church pews overturned, blood everywhere. Most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. But once again, Sutherland Springs, the story of Sutherland Springs is not the face of evil and depravity that murdered those innocents. The story of Sutherland Springs is the story of Stephen Williford. Stephen Williford's a plumber, lived about a block away. His daughter called him and told him there's a shooting at the church. Stephen ran to his gun safe, pulled out his rifle, an AR-15. And he ran to the church. He ran there barefoot, didn't even bother to put shoes on. Huddled behind the pickup truck and yelled out at the shooter. The shooter was systematically executing men, women, and children. There's a young man he was about to kill. When Stephen called out for him, the shooter came out and began to engage him in a firefight. I stood behind that pickup truck that was covered in bullet holes. The house behind Stephen was covered in bullet holes as that shooter began firing at him. But Stephen is an NRA rifle instructor. Otherwise known as the media's worst nightmare. The shooter was wearing body armor, and yet Stephen was able to hit him in the leg and in the side. And that shooter threw down his rifle, jumped in a car, and took off. Now, at this point, another fellow named Johnny was driving along in a pickup truck. And Stephen waves at him. Now, I want you to picture this image. Stephen's in his 60s, got a little white beard.